Chapter 1. The Encounter at the Summit, The Fate of Two Continents. In the historic meeting hall of the Council of Europe, under the dazzling crystal chandeliers, a tense silence prevailed. One of Europe's most powerful women, Helena Vanderberg, stood at the head of the table with documents in hand. Opposite her stood a young and determined leader, Burkina Faso's president, Ibrahim Traoré. This meeting was no ordinary diplomatic contact. Established ideas about Europe's economic superiority and new hopes for Africa's future were at stake. It was a turning point for both sides. Helena was a fierce and ambitious politician who focused on Europe's problems. She intended to corner Ibrahim with her strong arguments supported by economic data. But Ibrahim was not only armed with statistics. He was a leader who openly confronted historical injustices and inequalities. He would clearly expose Europe's colonial legacy and economic distortions that lasted centuries. The 90-second intellectual duel shook Europe's history, Africa's realities, and global political balances. Helena's cold world began to tremble before Ibrahim's knowledge and courage. Chapter 2. The Rise of Ibrahim Traoré, The Journey of a Young Leader. Ibrahim Traoré was no ordinary leader. His life began as a young boy growing up in a rural part of Burkina Faso, full of hardships. But his vision changed once he encountered education and politics. Determined to fight Africa's post-colonial problems, economic dependency, and foreign interventions, he entered politics at a young age. He built a strong bond with his people and fought for justice and equality. This chapter details Ibrahim's childhood, education, political awakening, and his grand vision for his continent. It also shows through personal anecdotes and struggles how big a mistake Europe made by underestimating him. Chapter 3. Helena Vanderberg's World, the Power Center of Europe. Helena Vanderberg was part of a powerful network, woven over years behind Europe's political scene. Cold-blooded, strategic, and never easily giving up. This chapter focuses on Helena's political career, how she managed Europe's economic and political power, and her preparation for facing Ibrahim. It delves deep into how she strategized in her mind and tried to defeat her opponent. For Helena, this meeting was not just a duty but a turning point in her career. She had to defend Europe's economic superiority, maintain her own reputation, and set an example for future generations. Chapter 4. The 92nd Duel, a historic confrontation. At Europe Summit, the room's lights dimmed slightly as all eyes focused on Helena Vanderberg and Ibrahim Traoré. Helena, standing behind the Council of Europe's presidential podium, gave a last glance at her papers. Ibrahim stood calm and confident. Both knew this talk was not just between two leaders, but at the crossroads of two continents and two different futures. Helena's challenge. Helena began coldly and decisively. Mr. Traoré, the European Union has long symbolized economic stability and growth. Numbers speak louder than any harsh criticism. Our growth rates, technology investments, and innovation capacity lead the world. The funding and infrastructure Africa needs for development is possible, thanks to Europe's cooperation. No matter your data, the facts don't change. Everyone in the room was impressed by Helena's powerful, well-prepared words. Europe's strongest woman hid her strength behind figures. Ibrahim's calm reply. Ibrahim smiled lightly and replied, Helena, the realities behind your economic growth figures often go unseen. Europe's debt is increasing, population is aging, and social disparities are deepening. Meanwhile, Africa's growth potential is underestimated. Yes, we need infrastructure, funding, and technology, but these demands must be met as equal partners, free from the burdens of a colonial past. We want justice and opportunity, not charity. Ibrahim's words changed the atmosphere. It wasn't just about numbers, but about historical truths and social justice. The 45-second tension of arguments. Helena slammed the table. You talk about equality, but don't forget how much time Europe spends solving its own internal problems. Your political stability and infrastructure are not at our level. If Africa wants to stand on its own feet, it must first bring order to its own house. Ibrahim didn't avert his gaze. Your order is a system built to protect your own interests. Our order is measured by how well it meets the needs of our people. Political stability often means silencing the voice of the people. That's why we want real cooperation, not patronage. Final words. Ibrahim's victory. In the last 15 seconds, Ibrahim continued. Helena, Africa's voice is now being heard. We are not just needy recipients of aid. We are active participants in the global economy. In the future world, mutual respect and equality will prevail. As a strong leader of Europe, accepting and supporting this will also be in your best interest. Helena was at a loss for words before this young leader standing tall. The room's silence was a message spreading worldwide. Chapter 5. The Echoes. The world hears the historic confrontation. After that historic encounter between Helena Vanderberg and Ibrahim Traoré, shockwaves spread far beyond the Council of Europe's walls. The 90-second intellectual duel became the centerpiece of global headlines. The media's fiery pen. From Europe to Africa and beyond, media outlets meticulously analyzed the meeting. Leading European newspapers highlighted Helena's rare moment of vulnerability and inability to defend her stance. African media hailed Ibrahim as a hero. Headlines like Europe's most powerful woman silenced by African leader, intellectual lesson from Africa's rising star, and a historic duel in 90 seconds trended for days. Clips of Ibrahim's speech spread rapidly on social media, inspiring youth worldwide. Diplomatic turmoil. Diplomatic circles were divided. Some European nations supported Helena, calling it a temporary misunderstanding, while others accepted Ibrahim's correctness and Europe's shifting global position. The African Union issued statements reinforcing this historic moment. Ibrahim became a new symbol of unity and independence for the continent. Other African leaders adopted similar stances, sparking political momentum across the region. The voice of the people, hope and change. In Burkina Faso and across Africa, people celebrated with uncontainable enthusiasm. Ibrahim's courage and wisdom ignited new hope, especially among the youth. Our voice is finally being heard, many said. Cities held celebrations, panel discussions, and educational programs. People were proud of their leader, who spoke not only with economic data, but also with calls for historical justice and equality. The beginning of a new era? Following that day's meeting, global balances began to shift. Ibrahim Traoré's rising voice attracted attention not only in Africa but also in other developing nations. New alliances formed, justice-based partnerships came to the fore. Helena Vanderberg faced a turning point in her career, compelled to reconsider European policies due to internal doubts and external pressures. Chapter 6. The Inner Worlds of the Leaders. Moments of crisis and personal reckoning. Helena Vanderberg. Power, stubbornness, and reflection. In her magnificent office at the Council of Europe, Helena faced the echoes of the 90-second duel alone. Throughout her long career, she had faced many confrontations, but this was different. For the first time, her well-built arguments were masterfully and firmly dismantled by a young leader. Bathed in sunlight, she drifted into deep thought. Questions arose within her as a person beyond the ambitious, cold-blooded politician she had always been. Am I really doing everything right? Is Europe's superiority sustainable? Where is this young leader right? Behind her strong front, suppressed anxieties, regrets, and loneliness emerged. Her life had been built on winning and maintaining control in politics. But now, that control was shaken and replaced by vulnerability. Looking out from her large window, she pondered Europe's future. We must change. Otherwise, we will remain just a dusty footnote in history. Ibrahim Traoré. Courage, responsibility, and hope. Thousands of kilometers away in Ouagadougou, Ibrahim listened to the voices of his people after the meeting. Pride filled him, but so did heavy responsibility. This duel was not just a victory but a beginning. Years of witnessing injustice, exploitation, foreign interference, and prejudice compelled him to stand tall. It was not only a political but a humanitarian mission, working late into the night with reports, economic analyses, and people's problems. One question never left his mind. How can we build a better future? How can we truly give hope to Africa's youth, women, farmers, and workers? Ibrahim spoke not only with numbers but with the lives of people. His struggles and successes shaped his strength. Every word was a reflection of that belief and courage. Shared grounds and differences. though shaped by different geographies. Their inner worlds shared common ground: the enormous responsibility of the future and the burden of leadership. Helena's experience and Ibrahim's youth. Political savvy and pure courage. Europe's history and Africa's hopes balanced on a delicate line. This chapter unveiled the human sides: fears, hopes, and quest for change of two leaders, both wrestling with their own internal reckonings in a changing world. Chapter 7. New balances, political games and birth of alliances. Turmoil within Europe. Following the meeting, Helena Vanderberg endured not only a personal trial but an institutional one. The debate sparked political movements in Europe. Ibrahim's words fueled discussions about redefining Europe's global role. Some advocated for new strategies to face Africa's rise, while conservatives saw it as a threat. Europe's economic and political resources needed to adapt to changing global balances. Helena held intense meetings with her team, designing new diplomatic initiatives and partnerships with Africa. Yet, there were debates on whether these moves were sincere or merely self-interest-driven. New hopes and alliances in Africa. Ibrahim's success echoed widely in Africa. The African Union convened meetings to deepen economic and political cooperation. Developing countries increased solidarity, aiming to use their resources and potential more effectively. Young leaders and movements across Africa, inspired by Ibrahim's example, became more active in diplomacy and economic projects. This marked a stronger representation of Africa's self-determination on the international stage. Global new alliances. The evolving political atmosphere attracted global powers' attention. China, Russia, and the US closely watched Africa's rising voice and Europe's changes. Some countries increased strategic partnerships with Africa. Others revised old policies. New balances formed globally, and developing countries made their influence more felt. Chapter 7's conclusion. Ibrahim Traoré and Helena Vanderberg's 90-second duel was a turning point for not only two leaders, but global political balances. Old power structures were questioned, new alliances formed, and the world entered a future filled with hope and uncertainty. Chapter 8. The Daily. Face of Change, Reflections and Economic Moves in the Countries. The pulse of Burkina Faso. Ibrahim's victory was still alive in Ouagadougou streets. The people celebrated the symbol of their continent's rise, not just a leader. Yet, everyday realities remained: unemployment, infrastructure problems, education deficiencies, and inadequate health services. Ibrahim knew these challenges and wanted to translate his leadership into tangible change. New economic projects launched, modernizing agriculture, creating jobs for youth, and accelerating infrastructure investments through international partnerships. Young people on the streets listened to Ibrahim's words with hope, dreaming of a better future under his leadership. Political and economic waves in Europe. Helena faced her own struggles. Some European countries were forced to reform and reconsider relations with Africa. Some increased funds for African partnerships, while domestic opposition criticized these moves. As economic crises and social tensions rose in Europe, public debates on "Are we giving too much abroad?" intensified. Helena struggled to maintain political unity and sustainable cooperation with Africa, knowing failure could threaten her career. International projects and new horizons. Sustainable development projects between Africa and Europe were initiated. Investments in renewable energy, digital education, and women empowerment took concrete steps. Ibrahim viewed these as his leadership's greatest achievements. The steps we take today will shape tomorrow's world. Chapter 9. Storm approaching, unexpected crises and shocks. Internal tensions in Burkina Faso. Despite Ibrahim's rise as a new hope, troubles brewed at home. Political factions and interest groups resisted the winds of change. His international success stirred ambitions of strong rivals. Unrest began in some regions. Economic reform struggled to reach all social groups. Rumors of foreign interventions to destabilize new balances circulated. Ibrahim needed to keep strong ties with his people, not just international acclaim. Rising opposition in Europe. Helena faced pressure from conservative and nationalist parties. Campaigns against excessive concessions to Africa grew. Economic crises, migration issues, and social tensions hardened public reactions. Helena balanced between preserving Europe's political cohesion and fostering sustainable partnerships with Africa, with her political future hanging in the balance. New power games. Global powers were active. China and Russia expanded influence through investments and diplomacy. The US reshaped its Africa policy. Africa's rise under Ibrahim sparked new competition among great powers, complicating politics, alliances, and crises. Chapter 10. A New World on the Horizon. Challenges, Lessons, and Hope. Helena Vanderberg and Ibrahim Traoré's encounter was more than a diplomatic duel. It marked the opening of a new chapter for two continents and the global order. The challenges, conflicts, and tests that followed changed and matured them and their surroundings. Helena's rebirth. For the first time, Helena faced deep introspection but did not give up. She fought to redefine Europe's evolving role, pushing for inclusive and just policies. She acted not with her old rigidity but with wisdom and empathy. Realizing Europe needed a true partnership with Africa, she forged new alliances. She and Europe became pioneers of transformation. Ibrahim's legacy. Ibrahim never lost hope despite difficulties. He stayed close to his people and tirelessly worked for Africa's development. He rose as the continent's voice on the international stage. His leadership inspired younger generations. He went down in history as not only a politician, but a visionary laying foundations for an equal and sustainable Africa. A new world is possible. Their story, woven with power, courage, and change, showed the world. True leadership means accepting differences, carrying history's burden, and building the future together. Though challenges remain, Helena and Ibrahim's legacy proved that a new world is possible.